All right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Civ and Chill. How's everybody doing? How's everyone doing? I always ask this shit like I'm Dora, even though I obviously can't hear what you guys are saying, but I'm doing all right. It's a cold day today. It's like the first day of winter. There's like some kind of meteorological shit going on that's making it crazy. But yeah, it's getting cold. Is about that time when winter's here. I feel like I'm getting daylight savings pilled because you know in my youth, in my younger days, I used to be like, yeah, sunlight. I want the sun to set. I want the sun to set at 8 p.m. What do you mean the sun's setting at 4:30? This sucks. I need to like go, I don't know, be outside and be a hooligan. But now in my unk years, I'm just ready to be like, as soon as the sun sets, I'm like, yeah, it's time to retire. And then when the sun, like, I need to walk my dog mad early in the morning. I feel like just the sooner, I'm like, as soon as the sun rises, I'm like ready to go. You know what I mean? So I need the sun to rise early, and then I'm just really enjoying being a hermit at night. Anyway, that's the that's what's going on in my life. More generally, I guess the topic of today's video, besides, you know, the randoms, whatever the fuck is going on in my brain, is the main topic of every video. But really, for today's video, I want to talk more about New York City and, you know, what I think about New York City, my relationship with New York City, just everything about New York City, because I came out with the video last week, New York City is breaking my brain, and in the course of making that video, like, that video went through, like, many different iterations, and each iteration was, like, 50% different until we reached the version that I finally published. So I feel like, you know, in the course of making the video, I thought a lot about New York and, like, just, like, everything about, like, the vibe, the economy, the culture, just like you know, because this is like, you know, where I grew up. This is my home. This is where all my family is. Like, I feel like a big, this might be cringe to say, but I feel like a big part of my identity is like the fact that like I'm from New York. Actually, now that I think about it, not necessarily, but like, you know, New York is like a part of who I am because it shaped me during my formative years. Like, I care about New York because all my family lives here and I care about them, and I hope that they, you know, even if I don't live in New York long term, I hope they get to live in a good place, you know. So yeah, I just have a lot of thoughts about New York, and this video is just going to be where I spit them all out. Like, a lot of my thoughts are kind of framed through the election too, right? Because, you know, the video I made pretty heavily pretty heavily used the election as like a framing device for like the narrative I was telling. I'm being like way too like technical about my creativity, which is probably killing the magic. But yeah, it's like but the election is a framing device in the video I made, but like I feel like or definitely in earlier versions of the video, it was much more heavily centered around the election, because I feel like the election, you know, spoiler alerts if you did watch the video, but you probably, you know, whatever, go watch it after or whatever. I feel like the election is kind of like a canary in the coal mine moment for gentrification and how gentrification is really shaping New York. And I won't get into like, you know, the whole is Zoran for gentrifiers debate. We'll save that for later. But for now, it's like, I feel like, you know, you can't deny that, like, you know, the changing demographics of New York had a big factor in like how this election played out. And like that, another point I make in the video is that, like, you know, changing demographics isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Because New York is a city of immigrants, and the demographics are going to change. But I feel like, it's just, as when things change, that's scary. That's like just a normal human emotion because it's uncertain. And so I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty in New York right now because, the demographics are changing even beyond like, even let's like not talk about like very sensitive, demographic changes like race or income or age. Like, let's just like, even beyond all that, I feel like the general vibe of New York is changing. Like, even if you were to account for, all the signifiers I before mentioned, like, just like something fundamental about like New York and like its culture and like its position in the world maybe is changing. So I just want to think about all those things because I've been thinking a lot about them for the last few months, trying to frickin' make this stupid ass video. No, I'm glad I made it, but it was definitely a journey to get it done. But anyway, let's talk about all the stuff I didn't get to that was cut for time in the video. So I guess, I mean, like a lot of what, like I said, like a lot of when I made the first version of the video, it was much more election centered. So a lot of stuff I'm about to say is like stuff about the election that I kind of cut for time. But I feel like, there's a lot to kind of parse apart in how it plays in the larger story. Okay, that is enough explaining. Let's just talk about the shit. So I want to talk more about, in the video, I mentioned that I said something along the lines of a lot of Zohran's policies feel like they're more about exciting his political base than helping the most New Yorkers. It's a very general statement, and then I provided one example, kind of, in how he's going to make buses free. But I want to talk more about like all his policies and why I think maybe all his policies are not about helping the most New Yorkers, because his big three policies are, free buses, frozen rent, and free childcare. And then there's lots of other miscellaneous stuff like city-owned grocery stores. But I think the big three are free buses, frozen rent, free childcare. And I feel like these three proposals, once again, are not about helping the most New Yorkers necessarily, because if you like, let's look at free buses. If you wanted to help the most New Yorkers, you wouldn't focus on buses. You would focus on the subway, making the subway more reliable, making it more safe. And to do that, you probably need money. So making the buses free is like not to make it zero sum because we're all on the same team here. But to make it zero sum, if you're not charging for the buses, then that money that you would have made from the buses that could have fixed the subway is not going to fix the subway. So free buses, it's like questionable priorities. Frozen rent. So the frozen rent will apply to buildings that are rent controlled, which is a subset of all rentals, and you have to like meet some very specific conditions. But once again, I think this is like more of like a catchy thing to say. Like the guy who said the rent is too damn high. Like that guy got really popular because he said something funny that was true. And when you say freeze the rent, it's like, oh, it sounds really good. But it's only going to apply to a subset of rentals. And then also you might make non-rent controlled apartments more expensive in the process. Because if we're going off like the supply-demand curve, right? The supply-demand curve is like the main driver of why New York City rent is so expensive. If you freeze the rent-controlled rentals, you're going to decrease supply because people in those rent-controlled rentals will be less likely to move out. So if you decrease supply, you're going to increase the price for like all non-rent controlled rentals, right? Am I crazy? this is all just economic speculation, I guess. I don't have a freaking PhD from the University of Zurich in economics, even though economics is fake, right? But what do we want to build here? I think we want to build. We got to start getting some bowmen out here because I'm afraid of Rome. But yeah, I don't know. That I feel like Frozen Red is once again like what you really need to do to fix New York's problems is to build so much more housing, right? You need to build like that is really the only way you're gonna like actually solve the problem because once again it's like a fundamental supply and demand issue, and I don't see the demand going down anytime soon. So then you need to like you have to fix the supply. Because everything else, like if you freeze the rent, that's like a band-aid on the situation. You're not addressing like the supply is still small. You know, you can I don't know. Can you freeze the rent forever? Does that can we just like can we tell inflation to just cut it out? Is that something we can do, guys? I think that would be a great idea if Zoran could do that. I'm not even joking. Non-ironically, if we could tell inflation to just cut it out. I think we should try to get on that. Yeah. But yeah, and then the last proposal Zoran has free childcare. Like once again, like free childcare is not targeting like poor New Yorkers specifically. Its target is young people who have young kids ages 0 to 5 who will be in childcare. You know what I mean? Like there will be lots of rich people who have kids 0 to 5. There'll be lots of poor people have kids 0 to 5, but like it's not aiming specifically at helping the most New Yorkers. Selfishly, I don't have any fucking kids, so free childcare is not going to make my life any easier. Which once again is why did I move this here when this guy is here? But once again, I know that's like very selfish, right? Because like lots of people have kids or want to have kids, and then childcare is like a big reason why they feel they can't have kids. So I understand, like, on a general level, I definitely think childcare should be free. I guess it's like, in New York specifically, it's like, I don't know if that should be our priority. But then that makes me feel like I'm being like, like YIMBYs, yes in my backyard, and NIMBYs, not in my backyard people. Like, it feels like when I say we should have free childcare, but not in New York because we have problems, I feel like a NIMBY for like socialism. You know what I mean? Because like in principle, I definitely agree with free childcare. It's just like I don't know in the circumstances of New York, like where we are at as a city, if that is like what our priority should be. But then it's like, well, we gotta fucking start somewhere with this free childcare shit. You might as well do it in like the most wealthy city in the world, I guess. So I don't know, but yeah, I feel like all these things that are promised, free buses, free childcare, free rent. It's not necessarily aiming at helping the most people, right? It's aiming at like helping a very specific subset of people who take the bus, have young kids, and are renters, which kind of sounds like transplants. Not to be offensive, but I feel like that is kind of like the unspoken tension in the election is that like and maybe it's becoming, I feel like it's unspoken but also like kind of spoken. It's like it's like it's an unspoken spoken thing. But it's like this is why everyone's got beef with the transplants. It's because like now it's like all the political capital and money. I can't believe Rome faked me out like that. They had their scout to block this fucking guy from taking my worker, and then they fucking played me, bro. They fucking played me like chumps. Anyway, yeah, that's why people got beef with the transplants and the gentrifiers. I don't know. I kind of said what I had to say in the video I made, but Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's also like in the video I was saying that the reason New York is losing its soul is because it's so expensive that like, if you're an artist or anyone who's like not working, anyone not working in finance, you basically just can't afford, like you literally can't afford rent, a roof over your head to live here. So then everyone who's like trying to do something passionate with their lives, or like, just not part of a corporate machine, they can't afford to live here. And then so something that might be on like Zoran's side is that he says he's going to make New York cheaper, right? Which is what I also want New York to be cheaper, for very practical reasons. Like I want more money in my bank account, and also for like just the vibe. Like I want New York to be a place where a broke art, like I can meet a broke artist on the street. There are broke artists on the street, but it's like they're broke, and then they also have to suffer the indignity of like paying New York City rent. You know what I mean? And then there's like much less broke artists on the street. I would like to meet more. You know what I'm saying? I would like New York to be a place where more normal people can live, who don't have to make a bajillion dollars. So I think I agree with Zoran on that point, I guess. Not that this is a personal battle of the wits between me and him, but I agree with him on that point. I guess I'm saying, like, I'm not sure that the way he's going about it, which is like to make the buses free and free childcare, is the way to bring more like of the weird, in quotation marks, parts of New York back to New York. For all the reasons I just rambled on about. Yeah, because I feel like New York's like like, not to pull the I'm a real New Yorker card, but to pull the I'm a real New Yorker card. I was born here. I have spent 22 of the 27 years of my life, maybe 21. I went away to California for college and my job, but I spent a lot of time living in New York. And like from my experience, I would say the biggest like New York is just like chaos. It's like entropy incarnate. And I love my people, but like I feel like even a New Yorker would agree. Like, yes, New Yorkers are chaotic. I don't think that's a offensive thing to say. And like part of what keeps this city running is that we all like we try to contain the entropy. You know what I mean? We try to get the trash picked up on time. We try to like, not have too many violent episodes. Like everyone is trying really hard to like keep the peace, I would say. Like when I ride the subway, like I could tell, like when I ride the subway, I can tell that we all just want to get home without like having to fight someone. You know what I mean? Like everyone just wants to get home without like getting involved in some crazy shit. Because we've all seen, if you spend any amount of time here, you see some crazy shit around, and then you don't want to be involved in that. And I feel like that is like New York City's like biggest problem, I would say, that needs like putting attention to. I guess like affordability is like also like right up there, right? It's because it's like if you literally can't afford a roof over your head here, then that fucking sucks. Then you are fucked, because then you have to move somewhere else, or you literally become like a person without a roof over your head in New York. And you see a lot of those in New York who have to live in the shelter system, and it's like very horrible. And I think that is another big reason, that is another big problem with like the supply and demand problem of New York City's housing, is that when there's not enough supply, to house everyone, then not everyone, some people have to live in shelters or live on the street, and that is very horrible. And we have to figure out how to. That is like a big problem in New York, and that I feel like that this is skipping ahead, but I feel like that is like a problem with like the system. That's the problem with the system, and we'll come back to that, and we're gonna talk about the system later. But yeah, I feel like the big problems for New York, like I don't know, like childcare isn't free anywhere. You know what I mean? Not to be like that guy, but I feel like it's like I don't know. It's like if like the trash, not that I'm saying, I don't know why I keep harping on this point, because for all I know, Zoran could be really good at like managing the trash pickup. So I don't know why. Maybe I'm unfairly discounting his prowess at collecting the trash. But yeah, it's like if the trash, but just to stick to that point, if like the trash isn't picked up and like crime gets worse, then no one's gonna care about frickin' free buses, because then frickin' shit is, you're not gonna want to take the bus anywhere where shit is bad. Also, once again, I know it's very like boomer and like Republican of me to be like, oh, crime. So I'll just say that crime is a problem that is certainly like an issue in New York. It always has been, always will be, and that hopefully we move towards a utopian society where we know crime is committed. I guess that's all I have to say about that. Yeah. Let's just plowing ahead. In the video I made, I made it before the general election, but it was published the day after the general election. And I haven't dived too deep into the election data, because now that that video's done, I feel like I'm so done with politics. Like I don't want to, like, everything I learn about Zoran from now on, I'm hoping to learn against my will. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't want to be, like, looking this shit up or Googling it anymore. I feel like it was an important video for me to make and, like, go through a process of, like, really civically engaging, kind of, by, like, really taking a deep dive into, like, everything. But also, it's just like such a like draining, just for me personally. Like now we're we're just chilling here. We're talking casual. You know what I mean? I'm just playing Civ. I'm trying to frickin' attack Rome at some point, even though right now we're behind them. So we have to figure, like, after this caravan is built, I'm thinking about dumping 2 more settlers somewhere. And then we really gear up for a Rome attack. But anyway, like I said, I'm just chilling here. We're just chilling here. But yeah, I feel like, dude, like, just for me personally, like my personal life, like getting too into politics is like just messes with my brain, messes with my creativity. Like, I just don't like it. So at the same time, I feel like it's very important, because it's like, how our freaking society is run, and why like Jeff Bezos is like evil and is gonna like destroy the planet. So it's definitely important, but for my brain chemistry, if I want to like not feel horrible, it's not good. So yeah. Anyway. I'm hoping to know less about politics going forward. But, after my video came out, I did look at some general election data, because I wanted, to stay on top of my game. And also, like, in the video, I kind of make this broad claim that Zoran is voted in by gentrifiers, because it worked it works for the narrative of my video. And like his main like base, I would say, definitely is like this, like I said, the area in Brooklyn and Queens across the river from Manhattan. But also, like, it's not only those people who voted for him, right? In the general election, he won across all income levels, as opposed to the primary where he lost the poorest districts. He won in like the Bronx. He won in like parts of Manhattan, parts of Queens, parts of outer borough Queens, outer borough Manhattan. His base is not just gentrifiers. That being said, so it's very nuanced, right? It's like, I feel like that is kind of like what I was discovering as I dove deeper into the election, is that like there's no one theory of everything that like explains the election, right? Because if you voted for Zoran, maybe it's because you like free buses, or because you have a kid and you want free childcare, or maybe it's because you hate Cuomo because of how he handled COVID, or the sexual harassment allegations. There's lots of like reasons why you might vote for one candidate over another. So I feel like it's we want to build settlers in these outside places, I guess so. So it's like very complicated, right? There's no one overarching reason why. It's just very complicated. Like the real world is very complicated. That's all I'm trying to say. And like, when I make a funny YouTube video, I have to like distill it down. Or even when I'm talking about it right now while trying to play Civ. So like really only about, at most, I'm devoting like 70% of my brain to thinking about this while I'm trying to play Civ. See, I'm losing my train of thought. There's no reason to explain everything. That being said, in a poll released by NBC, the majority of people who are born in New York did not vote for Zoran. They preferred a different candidate. And Zoran is more popular amongst what you would call transplants, people who are not born here. So there's just a lot. I feel like, once again, not I don't want to vilify the transplants, because it's a free country. You can move where the hell you want. If it's your dream to live in New York and you have the means to live in New York, then to thine own self be true. Then you have to move to New York. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not telling anyone to not move to New York. It's just like interesting to me to see like how New York, like how things are changing. Like I said, it's like a canary in the coal mine moment for me. And I don't know like what the canary is chirping about. I just know that it's chirping and like something's coming. New York City is changing, and I feel like it's just interesting to me. And then it makes me want to think about like, okay, I see this difference. I see this data in the election data that tells me like something's changing. Like, what could it be that's changing? And then like kind of the thing that I see is gentrification. Like, that is the thing that I see, from all that stuff, and from like the data. That is like the narrative that I'm like teasing apart from the canary that is like the election. You know what I mean? And it just makes me like get like, I don't know, like wax philosophical, I guess, about like New York. And we should build some ducal stables, huh? Let's build a combo. I don't want Rome to attack us. It just makes me wax philosophical about New York and like the state of New York. And it's like, if a bunch of gentrifiers are here, then like who is New York really for? You know, is New York for the people who were born here? In which case we should all fuck off and give New York back to the Native Americans. Is New York for, you know, immigrants coming here to make a better life for themselves? Is New York for college grads, you know, who want to come here and like live their fantasy of being in Friends? Is New York for I don't know, like migrants from frickin' from that are being bussed here from Texas? You know what I mean? Like, who is New York for? And I feel like that is a really, that is kind of like the big, you know, forget the politics. All, you know, politics is so fucking cringe. Fuck politics. You know, forget the politics. Like, drill down to like the human story. The human story is like, who is New York for? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know who it's for. I feel like that is the kind of like the big question that we are trying to answer through like the physical mundanity of like everyday policy bullshit, like free buses and shit. You know what I mean? I guess just on a personal level, it's like, you know, just for me, as like a guy with like my own selfish worldview or whatever, it's like, it just like makes me wonder, is this city the city for me? You know what I mean? Because I feel like the city that I love, I don't know, the city that like I grew up in is like maybe not, maybe the city, okay, I'm trying to like word this correctly. The way I saw this city when I was a kid is maybe like no longer the city I want to live in as an adult, which is fine. Like that makes a lot of sense. I'm not a kid anymore, so maybe it just like doesn't fit my adult personality. And then maybe also the changes that have happened to New York are the reason why it no longer suits me. But I don't know. It could also just be that I'm fucking adult now and I don't like to fucking have to deal with noisy ass neighbors. You know what I mean? And when you're a kid, that's much less of a concern because you are the noisy neighbor. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's just like New York now. Like you can see it in like the East Village or Park Slope. Like those are what happened to neighborhoods on like the other side of gentrification, where they're just like totally gentrified. Like they're not, you forget that they used to be like places where poor people could live. You know what I mean? And it's like now those places are great places to visit. You know what I mean? I love visiting the East Village, you know, hopping on the train and taking and seeing the East Village or Park Slope. But it's like also like not a place a normal person who's making like less than, I don't know, $200,000 a year could like live. You know what I mean? You can't, I'm pretty sure you can't like live a super comfortable life where you like own your own property for $100,000 in Park Slope or the East Village. I feel like there's a 99% chance that's not happening. So it's just like, yeah, like sure, when the neighborhoods change, maybe they get better subjectively, but then also like, yeah, everyone then has to move the fuck out of here because none of us can live here. So I don't know. It's just a very complicated thing that you know, I'm trying to work through my thoughts on it, and that's just the anecdote, I guess. Yeah, I feel like New York has a lot of problems, right? New York has a lot of problems. I feel like I was kind of saying before, the fundamental problem is this problem of supply and demand. And so I feel like there are like three ways you solve the problem. You increase supply, you decrease demand, or you say fuck it. You tear up a piece of paper that has the supply and demand chart on it. You light it on fire and you say, fuck this shit. We're going to build a new system that doesn't depend on supply and demand. And we burn it all down. So those are the three options. Let's just go through them all a little bit. Like, once again, I feel like increasing supply is really the only way to fix like the fundamental problem of New York City expensive rents. Because even if you freeze the rent, that doesn't like make buying a house cheaper, right? And I'm assuming most of us don't want to freaking rent for our whole lives. But don't even get me started on the New York City housing market, bro. Like, in the video, I only talk about renting. Like, buying a house, like I'm not even sure like that is a reality for anyone imagining. You know what I mean? Even to buy a house literally anywhere in New York costs $1 million. You know what I mean? You could buy like a shitty condo for like $500,000. You know what I mean? But like, what kind of like life is that? You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like New York now, New York, I feel like, is living like a sardine can. And it just sucks. It just sucks, dude. I do not like living elbow to elbow with like everyone. But yeah. So you have to increase supply, but like I don't know like how much more we can increase supply in New York, because once again, there's only like a certain amount of land here. There's only like, I guess we could like start knocking down buildings and building skyscrapers in their place. Once again, it's like, I don't know, why would you want to live here then? Like, you want to live in a sardine can? I don't know, dude. But yeah, increase supply, or we could decrease demand. I don't really like, how are we going to do this? We can't gatekeep New York, so there's not really a way we could decrease demand. Also, if demand decreased, I'm pretty sure the economy of New York would go to shit, so not an option. Last option, got to burn it all down. And this is kind of where I was saying like Zoran isn't radical enough, because if the buses, like, fuck making buses free, make food free, like, on a philosophical level, how many times am I going to say this, like, on a philosophical level? What does that even mean? I'm just trying to say, like, don't judge me for what I'm about to say. I'm just about to say some crazy shit. But yeah, like, food is much more important than like a bus. You know what I mean? Like, everyone needs food to live. Not everyone needs to ride the bus to live. Therefore, food's more important. Therefore, we should focus on making food free before we make buses free. You know what I mean? That is like the ultimate. That's like kind of like the ultimate upshot of what I'm saying, where like we got to focus on our main priorities. And I feel like this is why I'm saying gotta burn capitalism down, because like I think like on the most fundamental human level, it does actually make sense to like make food free, because if we're all saying we're all human beings and like we all care about each other and like we want everyone to live, like we definitely have like the means as a society, because like we have tractors and shit, you know what I mean? We have like the productive means as a society to like, if there's a lot to work out logistically. So obviously food's not free in terms of like work has to be done to create the food. But we could definitely like give food. We could make food free for like the most needy, but we don't do that because our society of capitalism like doesn't like have that strong an incentive for us to do that, because we're taught to like all be selfish and like maximize our own profits and like utility or whatever. So I feel like we got to burn it all down. That's also like why I feel like homelessness is such a big issue is because we just have like as a society we don't feel like, we have like literally enough money like sitting in like stock accounts or whatever, where if you liquidated it, it would be enough money to like basically solve the homelessness problem in New York, probably, right? If you taxed all the billionaires, if you said all billionaires, give me $10 million so that we can build housing for people who need housing, you could build a lot of housing. But the billionaires are like, whoa, 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 don't touch my $10 million. I'm going to tell you if you can use this $10 million to help people, or if it's going to sit in my stock account doing nothing. So I feel like that's why capitalism is fucked. We let people... It turns out people are selfish as hell. I mean, who would have guessed? But that turns out to be the case when you just leave people with no rules to run around like crazy. So I feel like we gotta burn it down. It's like hard. Like, of course that's now I'm saying like it's like a very like long-term goal. I'm just like a guy on YouTube. I obviously don't have like a plan to actually make this new utopian society I'm talking about. Meanwhile, Zoran is out here trying to do like the actual practical work of leading an actual city government. So it's very easy for me to sit here from my civ chair and be like, yeah, just burn it all down. I know all that. I'm just saying we gotta burn it all down. Yeah, I feel like I am just really not enjoying living in New York anymore. I feel like when growing up, I definitely felt very lucky to live in what everyone told me was the best city in the world. And I definitely felt that because there was always like somewhere to go and something to do and like a place to check out. But now as an adult, I feel like like even if you put aside like the cost, right, which is like there's the New York City tax. Let's just say it wasn't even let's just say it costs like the same it costs everywhere else. I feel like the density of people is just such a drawback. Like it's always loud. Everyone is mean. That's another thing. It would be one thing if there were a lot of people, but like we were all kind of nice. Everyone is like mean. And I can't even blame anyone because I'm kind of mean and I understand that like we all have to kind of be mean to like just get through the day. You know what I mean? And like not get scammed or harassed or this or that. You know what I mean? Like I get it, but it's just not a pleasant place to live where everyone feels like they have to be hard all the time. And yeah. It's just not I feel like it's not the place for like where I am in life and like, what I'm trying to do. Like it's just not good for me. It just doesn't fit me right now. So I don't know. And then kind of connecting to what I was saying in this whole video, it's like I know it's very like 27 years old of me to be like New York City peaked exactly when I was a child. But I kind of do feel like New York City peaked exactly when I was a child. Like around like the mid 2000s, late 2000s, or early 2010s. Ever since then, like that is like when that was like the maybe I'm just being a kid. I feel like, but that was the last time like New York City felt like it actually had a non-corporate TikTok like energy. You know what I mean? After that, like New York feels like it's just been like totally like become like a Disneyland version of itself, like an inauthentic version of itself. And once again, I don't know, like I could be talking out my ass, but like I feel like a Occupy Wall Street, that was a vibe, dude. That could never happen in like the modern regardless of what you believe about like Occupy Wall Street's, political aims or whatever, a bunch of people just fucking bawling and being like, "Fuck the banks, fuck this Great Recession shit." That's baller, and like I feel like that wouldn't happen, with all the like finance bros and TikTok girlies in New York. Like who the fuck, like they would never do an Occupy Wall Street. So it's just, I don't know. Just oh shit, they're getting ready to attack me, bro. I just feel like New York isn't the place for me anymore. So maybe I gotta get the fuck out of here. Last thing I'll say is that I feel like Zoran, you could probably tell this in the video, like I'm very personally triggered by Zoran because he reminds me so much of like people at Stanford who like are like all talk and like no like actual skill. Just like from my time in like that whole like my quote unquote California period where I was like in like the Matrix. Like Zoran just reminds me of like 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 I said, startup just a guy who's like really good at like charisma, but then like, I feel like it's so weird that as a society we vote for like we decide who to pick to be we basically decided who to pick to be mayor based on like how good they were at campaigning, which campaigning and actually running the government, I feel like are two very different things. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that, I feel like Zoran just really triggers like my belief that extrovert privilege is real. You can't look at this election and tell me extrovert privilege is not real. It's just very triggering to me because of my personal life experiences and what I had to go through. So I gotta go to therapy for that and shit. Like, cause I know also cause like I realized that like Cuomo is like basically like a sexual harasser, which is like so horrible too. You know what I mean? And like we shouldn't have a sexual harasser be mayor of New York. But also I didn't rant about that for like however long because like, that wasn't like something that's personally triggering to me, like Zoran reminding me of my time in the Matrix. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's why I'm saying I gotta go to therapy, bro. I gotta work this shit out. So that's that. New York. Just some scattershot thoughts I got about New York. I'm thinking I gotta move out of New York, but I don't even like know where I would move to. I'm soft launching my plan to leave New York. The only cities I have in mind are cities I know from like having sports teams. So like Philadelphia, Denver, San Diego, Portland. There's also places where my friends live. Yeah, I don't know. Boston. I don't know. We'll see. Soft launch. Anyway, we're going to end. Those are my scattered thoughts about New York, and we're going to end this video like we end every video with Music Corner. Today I want to talk about Autonomy by Elio, an album which came out earlier this year. I actually wanted to make a whole ass video about it, but I never got around to it. So I'm doing it for Music Corner. But Autonomy, just a great album. Like I would say 7 of the 8 songs are truly bangers. The only song that's not a banger is the opening song, Jet Plane, which is okay because it's the opening song. Is there to set a mood for the album, serves a narrative purpose for the album, and even though it's not a banger, it's still pretty good. I did add Jet Plane to like my Spotify like songs, so I do like Jet Plane, but the rest of the songs on Autonomy are true bangers. I feel like Elio, a lot of her earlier stuff was very hyper pop. And then this album, I wouldn't say is hyper pop, but it definitely draws from like it's the album is kind of like raw and messy in a good way, which I feel like is very fitting with like the ethos of hyperpop. Lyrically, the album is very honest. Is I would say maybe some of her most honest and raw writing to date. So about plus points there. But yeah, I feel like the best part about it is just that it has bangers. Every song is very listenable. Like Sugar Baby is so good. Like it's actually like I think truly one of my favorite songs this year. Is truly goated. Saturday Night, really good. It's not as good as Sugar Baby, but it's really good. It's just like a chill banger. And then Sunbeam, last song on the album, I would say is like the daylight of Lover by Taylor Swift to this album. Like what Daylight is to Lover, Sunbeam is to Autonomy. It's a very healing song, good for the soul. So I would definitely recommend you guys all check out Autonomy by Elio. That's Music Corner, baby. All right, that's an episode. What the hell did we do? We kind of built up our empire a little bit. We're preparing to settle 2 more cities, and then it's going to be full speed ahead after getting education to get crossbows and try to take out Rome. In fact, we might have to go for crossbows before education, but we'll figure that out next time, I guess. All right, that's an episode, everyone. Thanks for watching. Hope you're staying safe, staying sane, and having a good time out there. All right, I'll catch you next time. Peace.